Today's gospel is about penitents. And penitents bear the burden of the day, especially those ones which were hired in the beginning of the day at dawn. Not only did they work longer in tirelessly labour, but they also endured the weather conditions. The field is the vineyard. The penitents are the ones employed in the vineyard from Jesus himself. I jump. You yourself are your worst enemy. However, when your will is united with the will of God, you drive yourselves to entrust yourselves to be like Jesus. Your enemy strengthens your fight for Jesus, and you become wise as a result of it. The first shift, the first hour, is the hour of the Lord for the penitent. The first, little did the first labourer in today's gospel know that these hours were hours of reparation, hours which enticed the latter workers to go into the byways where they met the Lord. You see, Jesus already employed these men as labourers in the vineyard to bring salvation to not only them, but have them do the work so that they would do the reparation to draw others in. And that what was happening over a period of the whole day. Different groups of men, because of the prayers of the earlier penitents, the earlier workers, were drawing more and more into the vineyard. Our prayers are very necessary to bring about this transformation where many of us are sitting idle and waiting to be asked to go into the vineyard. It's prayer that you're being called into. It's reparative prayer, because when you realise that your prayers are needed, that Jesus wants you to pray for others, that you have been given suffering, inconvenience, bad weather, tummy aches and all the other pains that come from faulty doctors operating and giving you surgery, from medications which are the wrong medications which are causing you all types of mental distress. This is a suffering which has been given to you to announce the presence of the Lord to those people who are likewise suffering, that you are able to give to them what you yourself are suffering. Mother Teresa was such an example of this. With the vows of poverty, chastity and obedience, she herself was withdrawing from the world, withdrawing and dying to self so that she could be empty to be able to speak to those who are so lost in the world. And when I'm talking about lost, I'm not talking about the ones in the street who had rotting corpses even though they were still alive. I'm talking about the spiritual vacuum which is in the souls of so many American people and other Western countries. These are the people that you yourself are to minister to, but you need to start with prayer. Prayer, prayer, and prayer. And that's everyone's assignment. And in fact, so great is that assignment that the highest contemplative order in the church, the Carmelites and the Trappists, they are the ones who in silence pray for reparation for the conversion of sinners. And they are prepared to suffer all the inconveniences of the fasts and maltreatment which comes with it in the spiritual realm, because the devil doesn't want them praying and he will try and distract them with all sorts of mental traumas. The vacuum needs to be filled. We don't have the religious. The religious and the priests have let Christ down in so many ways. They are the big sinners within the church which cause much cancer to spread. Who's going to pray for them? They can pray for themselves, of course, but many of them aren't effective even in that because they are living in sin. Pope Francis is very open about that on a number of occasions. He said, put away those apps of pornography. He was addressing religious and also the priests. You see, the sin of a consecrated soul is magnified many, many, many more times than the sin of the faithful layperson. So you need to pray, and this is everyone's mission. If you don't know what your mission on life is, then it's prayer. Know that and come before the Blessed Sacrament, the most efficacious, the one who is the vineyard owner, the one who owns the real estate, the one who opens the heavenly gate, the one whose house is heaven, Jesus Christ. Come to him and pray. All ye who are thirsty and are wanting, come, because you can pray for those who don't know where to come to pray. But what happens is the roll goes on. And as we heard, they all came in at different stages. And then at the end, the prodigal sons, the prodigal daughters start to come in. And what happens? They become so stirred, so converted, that they are the prayers within the church. And then the last shall be first. Why is that? Because those who know the mercy of Jesus are the ones who don't want to turn back to sin, who know what it's like to be in sin. They now want to love God in so many ways that they will offer themselves up to Jesus like he offered himself up for them to bring them back to the fold again. Many don't know this great conversion, this great mercy. I would say with the people that I'm addressing here at the moment that you do know this, but just regard what I'm saying is that those people who had a deep conversion experience, where they were in a hopeless situation, where they thought the best place for them to be was to have been aborted in the mother who bore them, or to die, to euthanize themselves. No, they are the ones who can reach souls, who are able to bring about a prayer power which is lacking in so many lukewarm Catholics. So the vineyard is here on earth. Jesus wants people to be harvesters. We're all being called. Some will hear that call today to become Eucharistic adorers, to start to appreciate the need for the Most Holy Rosary as we come in, especially for the month of the Rosary, to start to pray, to bring people into prayer with you, to receive Jesus in the Eucharist twice a day as possible. St. Pius X himself brought about that particular norm in the liturgy to enable people, providing you attend the full Mass for the second Mass, you can receive twice a day, becoming more Eucharistic, becoming more transformative by the nature which is being divinized as you receive Jesus, because you start to transform more and more to be Christ-like, more virtuous, more patient, more loving, more empathizing, more prayerful. And with all of that, you start to bring in group after group after group after group of other people into the harvest. And as was said, those who come in later are the ones who had such a miraculous conversion of grace that they will never leave Jesus again, that they will come into the heart of Our Lady. We find very much with St. John Paul II this spirit of incessant prayer, of trusting prayer. His voice penetrated heaven to bring down upon the people of God and of the world, through Our Lady's maternal intercession, a shower of graces for conversions of sinners. You too, my brothers and sisters, with not only the help of John Paul II, but with his successor, Pope Francis, and all of heaven triumphant and the angels, must form a strong barrier of prayer to obtain the conversion of sinners. An example was given to us in today's Gospel, how those who went out first, not fully aware of why it was that they were paid the same amount, thinking it was unjust, but really it was Jesus' compassion and generosity, which cannot be measured in our minds. These people are the ones that, instead of seeing it as a great blessing to have this adverse, seemingly injustice against them, rather cherishing it and saying, good for those who are able to come forth and exceed us in the capacity to receive the graces which are made available to them. Won by the early birds. So the graces won by the early birds, those who get up in the morning, get down to sacrifice of Mass, that is what you're being called to receive more and more the Eucharistic Jesus. But in this particular parable, the early bird, those who got up, were the ones who stirred up the whole prayerful, faithful, into realising that they also were part of the harvest, accepting every trial and adverse situation as a blessing sent to us by God. Unless we do this, and this means for many rising to receive Jesus, starting the day with receiving Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament, you only get one chance, and that chance is in this life. So if you're not doing it, start to do it, because what you do in this life is dependent upon how many people are going to be saved. Instead of being stirred up and worried about world events, just focus on how you can repair the damage and bring people, the hardened sinners, back to Jesus. Receiving him in the Blessed Sacrament, praying the rosary in rosary groups. It's daily that you want to do things like this. Unless you do, there will be no labourers for the vineyard. Unless you pray often the Holy Rosary given to us by Our Lady, the most grave problems for the Church and for the world aren't going to be changed. The most grave dangers of impurity of sacrilegious communions are not going to be resolved, despite all the human means, the problems and the knowledge that you gain from the television and also the internet. That's not going to help solve the problems. It's not going to help the Antichrists, those who are spreading the poison to contaminate and take people to the eternal flames of hell. You must trust in the power of prayer and each day work and become the first of those labourers, and not care if those who come in later are going to jump you on the eternal reward. That's not your concern. Your concern is that you know, and therefore go for it. Take it while it's there. That's the last will. That's the will of God, that you accept those graces, availing themselves, beg for those graces. Ask Our Lady to be able to give you the graces so that you'll become the labourer that you're meant to be, and that you'll bring about a change in the world, because your prayers and your reparation will awaken people to their sinful ways and bring them back to God. The prodigal sons and daughters, they will be the ones that will jump ahead of us. So be that. God has his ways. We don't understand his ways. We do not have the mind of God.